welcome to Wednesday Debate with Taghreed Hussein here on Nile TV International. Tonight we'll be talking Egypt and India, pillars of bilateral relations and cooperation. As we all know that Egypt and India are two of the world's oldest civilizations that have enjoyed a history of close contact from ancient times. There is always a new momentum in relations binding both countries, Egypt and India, and a shared desire to take those relations to a higher level. However, we have a comprehensive strategy towards the new republic, a new opening and a new beginning to not only bringing those heydays of relations between both countries, but also taking them to a higher level. Egypt and India, two ancient civilizations that have withstood several challenges throughout history, and the two nations today are actually adamant to take those relations further. At the invitation of the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is paying a 3-day state visit to India, and he's the chief guest at India's 74th Republic Day celebrations. And tonight we have all the honor and pleasure to have with us His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Mohamed Hegazy, former assistant to the Foreign Minister, and also he was our ambassador to India.
Indeed.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hegazy. Your Excellency has been working hand in hand with India. And through your time as our ambassador in India, you definitely succeeded to take our relations further. Today, while we are talking, as His Excellency is the chief guest at those important and significant celebrations, sure, it has a very important significance, and it comes timely to add momentum to those relations.
Thank you very much, Taghreed, for inviting me to talk about this very important and bright moment of Egypt-India relations, in which in the Republic Day 74th anniversary and 75 years of bilateral diplomatic relations, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is the chief guest of the Republic Day, when India has celebrated also its constitution in 1950, a very important day and a very important guest in a gesture that is a reflection of India appreciation to its relations with Egypt and appreciation to the role President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is playing on a regional level. Both countries, Egypt and India, are playing in their respective region a very important role in stabilizing the regions, being it in Southern Asia or in the Gulf area or the Middle East. Egypt and India stood firm to stability and also in their joint efforts to combat terrorism and to assist each other to attain the developmental goals that they are both working for. I am sure that the balance of trade, the level of investments shows clearly that $7 billion balance of trade, which is almost divided between the two countries, means that it is very balanced, as well as a level of investment that is going now towards $3.4 billion, shows that the relations is now getting to where we all hoping for, besides in a very complicated, polarized world, and when international relations are witnessing this confrontational approach, I think India and Egypt, with their wisdom and foreign policies that is based on international cooperation, on the respect of the UN Charter and the rule of law, are very much needed nowadays to raise their voices and to tell the world that we need stability, we need to work together, not against each other.
Yes, definitely, and it's a relations that actually, as we said, withstood many challenges. Earlier in the day, it was a significant press conference with the Prime Minister of India, where President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi had said that Egyptian and Indian visions agreed to launch towards a sense of partnerships between both countries.
It is very important. This partnership goes back to last century, where Saad Zaghloul Pasha and the 1919 Egyptian civilian confrontation with the occupier at that time, the British, has transcended its lessons to the Indian drive by Mahatma Gandhi towards a peaceful end to the British colonialism, and happily both countries since the 50s have built up relations to attaining the noble goals of non-alignment, when Nasser and Jawahar Lal Nehru have together managed to launch to the world the noble principles of non-alignment, principles that we are very much in need nowadays, where polarization and the efforts of all the international parties towards our region, our countries in the Middle East, Arab world and Africa to take sides, while non-alignment was really a noble cause that I think Egypt and India need to revive and to support, and to help the third world to have its voice in this very critical moment of our international relations.
Yes, Nile TV International has brought you live the important press conference by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the Prime Minister of India. And also we have prepared a very delicious Indian dish that included also the gems of Bollywood and more concerning faces of India and the cultural atmosphere in India, which is really very distinctive, Ambassador. So allow us to have a short break and we'll be back. Short break. Mr. Ambassador, the visit is a very rich one. It's a state visit, and His Excellency, of course, met top senior officials in India, including the President. So definitely this is going to have a great impact on bilateral relations and future relations with India.
I remember, Tagreed, when I was ambassador to India, we signed with India a space agreement in cooperation in the space arena. And when I was asked by many, why not trade and industries, why space? At that time, the President of India said that this is the future of the relation. That's why space technology and the cooperation in the space arena is important.
So the sky is the limit.
The sky is the limit. Besides, India has now become one of the world economic powers, and
yes.
in 2030, India is nominated to be the third largest economy. India also is the host of the G20 this year, where Egypt is invited, beside President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi being a chief guest in the Republic Day 74th anniversary. He is also invited to the G20, where India will show to the world its political and economic strength. And I'm sure that a lot of the international agendas is affected by the Indian policies and wise strategies taking COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, for example, the Indian presence was felt, and I'm sure also in Glasgow 26. And India has played always a very important role in all what is related to international trade, international peace and security. So it's a country or a friend that is reckoned with, that is always looking to the good of its surroundings, to the good of the people who have bilateral relations so deep in history like this of Egypt and India. I would also mention that India is availing all its technologies to Egypt and to other countries, I have to say, to Africa and to our brothers in the Arab world. India is pioneering in IT industries,
Yes.
and also in technologies related to, as I said, maybe nuclear research, as well as the space technologies. And I'm sure that all kind of industries are available for Egypt industries and for our business community to join hands together. As maybe you have followed this afternoon, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, after he met with Prime Minister Narendra Modi,
Yeah.
he met also the Indian business community. You know, in
Yes.
Egypt there is like 3 billion Indian investments from all diverse Indian companies working in the country, being it in IT technologies or other industries, and I'm sure that the outcome of this meeting will encourage more Indian business leaders to join hands together and work in Egypt, which is represented by the president and by virtue of many realities as one of the most important, attractive investment hub, particularly that Egypt is also a hub for energy, and energy security is one of India's main concern. I remember when I was there, Indian industrialists have presented me a list of 30 billion industries that want to install itself in Egypt, but as it was energy consuming projects, it was like a wish list. But now, with Egypt being in the forefront of gas production and can avail to the Indian industries, I hope that Indian government will think about the highly talked about Indian industrial zone in the Suez Canal area, where Indian industries can maybe install itself, get the energy required for joint production that will add value to the strength of our relations. As I said, there is $7 billion US dollar exchange of trade, very balanced, 3.7 to India, 3.3 to Egypt,
Yes.
as well as 3.4 billion for the investment, which is after the meeting with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, who always present Egypt as an attractive investment hub.
Yes, His Excellency, as you've said, Ambassador, is always presenting Egypt as a very distinctive investment hub, and this brings us to the talk about cooperation in the economic zone of the Suez Canal. This has also been on the list.
Absolutely, it was always there, the talk about an Indian industrial zone. You know, China has already an
Yes.
industrial zone, very successful, with like 90 industries installed. So India is able to do such a thing, and when I mention the many Indian companies who are seeking industries, maybe like steel, plastic, aluminium, which is fertilizers, which is highly consuming industries of oil and gas, can now think of Egypt as a country that can host those industries and use definitely the hydrocarbon. I'm sure that this kind of also talk about the renewable energy is there. The green hydrogen was among the discussions that we had on the COP, where Indian industries also presented itself. So from space to trade and investments,
Yes.
to many technologies, India can provide Egypt a lot of those needed technologies. And I'm sure that this Indian industrial zone is in the making.
Yes, it is in the making, and in the making was also more concerning the Indian flavor here on Nile TV International, airing throughout the day, more concerning the gems of Bollywood, and as I said, faces from India, and more also concerning the landmarks of India, so that it will be an invitation on behalf of Nile TV to explore India here on Nile TV International. Let's watch. We're back, and we're still discussing Egyptian-Indian distinctive relations. Earlier in the day, in a press conference, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi stressed the importance of continuing to work to increase the volume of trade exchange and to maximize joint benefit from productive export capabilities between both countries. Also talking, Your Excellency, security and stability and the sense of cooperation in the field of combating terrorism.
Of course, Tagreed, this is a very important dimension of our relations. As President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi put it this afternoon, that there is no development without stability, and security and combating terrorism was on top of our both countries' agenda. And without that, I don't think India or Egypt could have attain the developmental goals. So I think cooperation in cybersecurity, which was announced today, cooperation in the field of terrorism and exchange of information is crucial. And I think the two countries are celebrating now the success of this ongoing battle. But I'm sure that what we have gained in Egypt is a learned experience that we can share with our brothers in India. And also India has accumulated a lot of expertise and knowledge in this very important field, not only to the stability of their respective countries, but also to the regions and to the world peace and stability. And as always, Egypt is adhering to the notion of combating terrorism and illegal immigration through development. Unless we install investments in Africa and we implant future perspectives, they will come to you. They will go to Europe, and they will come maybe as illegal immigrants, and they may come also as terrorists. So best for the world, best for Egypt, for India, is to implant industries, is to search investments, is to help people to find opportunities in their respective countries. And yes, I'm sure that this wise knowledge is shared between the two capitals, and President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi spoke about it clearly today. The success story of India and Egypt in combating terrorism is key to stability in the Arab world, in the Middle East, and in the Gulf, where Egypt and India has enjoyed for many years relations and community exchange. And today, while we are speaking, many of the Indian Navy frigates, has visited Egyptian
Yes.
ports and talk about joint production and thus military industries cooperation in the procurements of both armies are very important. You remember in the 60s, Egypt and India were even building their own fighter plane. So
Yes.
we can talk about an old history of relations where the armed forces in both countries have developed many lines of cooperation, including military production.
Yes. We have also more than one sense of cooperation, investment, and also intensifying and acceleration of flights binding both countries in the field of tourism. Maybe while we are going to air, Your Excellency, faces of India, Egyptians need to know more and to explore more the soft power of India and to know more about the Indian faces and life in India.
Culture in India is a dimension that is not less than any industries. Bollywood is one of the most lucrative industries in the countries, and we've been all built up to see many Indian movies and of course Bachchan and Shah Rukh Khan, but before that Nargis and Mother of India and the Sangam and the many Suraj and the many Indian films that has built itself in the memory of our generations. And I think that this industry can help in a great deal our industries as well. The cinema industry in Egypt is as old, and it goes back to early last century, and I'm sure that cooperation in this very important field, media or cinema, my two sons, for example, while I was in India, studied cinema, and now they are very successful in the industry because of the background and the studies they made in India and the visits they made to the Indian cinema excellent centers and studios. So I think India can help Egypt in many ways. They are availing all kinds of technologies as we named them, being it the IT, cyber confrontation of terrorism, cyber security, as well as the green and renewable energies, a lot that can be learned. As I said, India will replace many of the competing countries or industries and to be the third largest world economy in 2030. So I think it's a country that is there to help, that is to remember with her a lot of high points in our relations since Saad Zaghloul Pasha till Nasser Nehru or Sadat 1973 war, where India has stood firm to support the Arab rights and Egypt rights in returning Sinai to Egypt and to avail all the support needed to the Palestinian question. And I'm sure that this very continuing Indian stance to support Arab rights are very well known. We respect that. India foreign policy is a foreign policy that is based on legality, on international law, and the principles of non-interference and cooperation between nations. So I think they have both a role not only to enhance each other economies and relations and ties, but also to avail their knowledge and wisdom inherited in their foreign policies to what is happening now maybe in Europe, in the Ukraine, in the confrontation we are facing in climate change, in many of the agendas. I think the role of New Delhi and Cairo will remain very important. Both also in the Gulf region have invested not only with their enormous communities that is helping those countries to move further in their economic drive, but also to keep peace and security in one of the region which is very much related to peace and security worldwide. Besides, India is in a unique position where it needs a lot of maybe support in the field of energy. But they have a lot to also work with Egyptian companies and government in the supplies of gas and energy, or maybe, as I said, in installing Indian industries in the Indian, hopefully, industrial zone in the Suez Canal area, and that will render benefits. And I hope the outcome of this meeting this afternoon between President Sisi and the Indian business community will bring us to this agreement. We welcome the Indian industries. We can supply the hydrocarbon needed, the oil and gas, and we can move further in other technologies and maybe, as you said early, enhancing also our culture without really forgetting this very important element. Handicrafts, also India is a pioneer in this very important field where we can support women and youngsters in producing what they can by hand produce to express their culture.
Yes, definitely the cultural dimension and the people-to-people relations, a very important dimension. Let's watch Faces of India and we'll be back. Welcome back. Those were faces of superstars in the entertainment industry. And as we all know that Bollywood is always shining with those stars. And this sense of fame that comes from India is really very touching. Earlier in the day also, His Excellency the President stated that Egyptian and Indian visions agreed on maximizing the existing cooperation in other fields like, for instance, Ambassador, new and renewable energy. So this is also another important dimension in our cooperation.
In your previous question,
yes.
Taghlid, you mentioned tourism,
yes.
and I should have commented that Indian tourism is very important. We have a high season, and I hope to see in this very important season the Indian tourism. As I learned, 30 million Chinese tourists is waiting to visit Egypt. And I'm sure that with the newly established lines, we are flying weekly, daily, sorry, to Bombay, to Bombay, and we hope to see this happen also to New Delhi. New Delhi is the capital, it's a hub, and many other cities in India, Chennai and others, and I'm sure that Mumbai, New Delhi, frequent flyers will bring us a lot of tourism, which is one of the cornerstone to our progress in the economic side. As for the Indian efforts to bring in renewable issue to the table of discussion, I think green hydrogen is among the issues that was discussed between Egypt and India in COP27 Sharm el-Sheikh a few weeks ago, and I'm sure that in this field Egypt also has acquired a lot of knowledge with its very important electricity production lines that we established with Germany. I was ambassador to Germany when we established those three very important, one in Ain al-Sukhna and one in nearby Dimyata in Etko and one in Bani Suef. The three, each of them are the largest reactor for production in the world. Each of them is 4,800 megawatt. So India, with its acute electricity need, can work with the Egyptian side to supply this kind of installation, and maybe with the cooperation of Germany, and then we can produce electricity based on the Egyptian natural gas.
Yeah.
So such ambition can happen, and I think the Egyptian model with the German Siemens company can be transferred to India. We have the same ability as civil engineers. We can install the mechanical part from our partners, and then we can supply the gas. This is one of the area.
Yes.
When we talk about the Indian consuming industries of fuel and gas can be installed in the hub in the Suez Canal, where Indian industries can also enjoy Egypt being a hub for natural gas. Those are the kind of thoughts that we can work together. Indians have availed to us the space area where they have the base for training our scientists.
Yes.
In this very important field, in cyber technology, in IT, name it. India really are a true partner where Egypt can avail a lot of successes and support.
Yes, we were talking about mutual cooperation in the field of handicrafts, and also earlier in the day there were talks and discussions concerning encouraging small and medium-sized enterprises. And maybe it was also those meetings are an opportunity for our Indian brothers to know more also about the new republic and know more about the Decent Life Initiative and what is going on in Egypt on solid grounds.
In regards to handcrafts, of course, India is a place where you really have to look at when you decide on enlarging handcrafts and transforming it into an industry that will absorb all youngsters, being it girls, women, or newly coming young people to the market. So handcrafts in India is an art where you can really see all the emporiums, the Indian emporiums that represents all the governorates and cities in India with different kind of culture, with different material. And as you know, Suraj Kund, which is always in February, if I may recall, is one of the world's largest handicraft industries. In Egypt, I think we are embarked in the Ministry of Local Development now on an electronic platform where our handicrafts are not only sold in the natural marketplace, but in the normal marketplace, but also like Amazon handicrafts. So we designed that, and I think it's very successful. The Prime Minister this afternoon opened a station for Egypt, Hands of Egypt.
Yes.
And this also another dimension where we can learn a lot from India and cooperate together with. I'm sure that a lot can happen in the renewable energy and a lot also in the IT industries, where many of the mega Indian companies have installed themselves in the smart cities around Egypt.
Yes, definitely. And as we were talking about the exchange of visits and encouraging tourism, also exploring India's cultural heritage is very important and a very rich dimension. Let's watch Ambassador excerpts that highlight India's cultural heritage, and we'll be back.
Offering a myriad of experiences to people of all ages. A city brimming with natural heritage and numerous natural wonders welcomes tourists with an open hand. From the royal palaces to the iconic Taj Mahal, the lush green picturesque beauty of Kerala to the snow-capped mountains of Kashmir, India is beautiful in many ways. With more than 30,000 years of history, India is an incredible destination with more than 1,000 tourist attractions, including several World Heritage sites. The Taj Mahal. There are few sites in the world as iconic as the Taj Mahal. It is a must-see on most Indian itineraries, particularly for travelers on the famous Golden Triangle circuit linking Delhi, Agra and Jaipur. A statement to the power of an emperor's love, this astonishingly beautiful mausoleum was named after Mumtaz Mahal for his wife Shah Jahan. The best time to visit is either at dawn or dusk, when the atmosphere is brilliantly altered by the change in lighting. The Red Fort in New Delhi. New Delhi's colossal crescent-shaped red fort, named after the stunning red sandstone that was used in its construction, was built by Shah Jahan in 1648. It was also home to the emperors of the formidable Mughal dynasty for almost 200 years, until 1857, when the British took over. It covers a vast area of 254.67 acres, ringed by 1.5 miles of defensive walls, enclosing a complex of palaces and entertainment halls, projecting balconies, baths and indoor canals, and geometrical gardens, as well as an ornate mosque. The Gateway of India, Mumbai, standing an impressive 85 feet tall and located on the waterfront at Mumbai Harbour on the tip of Apollo Bandar, overlooking the Arabian Sea. The iconic Gateway of India is a bold yellow basalt arc of colonial triumph and a must-see. Incorporating Islamic styles of 16th century Gujarat, it was built to commemorate the arrival of King George V and his wife Queen Mary in 1911, and was opened with much pomp and ceremony in 1924. For a while, it was the tallest structure in the city. Amber Palace or Amber Fort in Jaipur was built as a fortified palace in 1592 by Maharaja Man Singh and has long served as the capital of Jaipur. Carved high up into the hillside, the fort is accessible on foot via a steep climb from the town below. You will enter Amber Fort through the Sun Gate, which leads to the Jalab Chowk, the first courtyard, with its many decorated elephants, and Sheela Devi Temple, dedicated to the goddess of war. Agra Fort, with the Taj Mahal located so close by, it's easy to forget that Agra has one of the finest Mughal forts in India. Built as a military structure in 1565 by Emperor Akbar, with later additions by Shah Jahan, Agra's Red Fort is an interesting mix of both Hindu and Muslim influences. The fort is entered through a Marsin gate with its low outer wall and dog-leg design built to confuse attackers, and you can expect it to be truly amazing as you walk through the courtyard after courtyard of a palatial red sandstone and marble fortress.
How beautiful. The footage speaks of itself, of incredible India.
It is incredible.
The beauty of India.
Absolutely, and the people as well.
Yes.
So knowledgeable, so decent, and so lovable to all what is good. So I think it's a place where you can definitely recreate and regain trust in principles, in life, in struggle, because people are fighting for life, and people who own the money invest it for the good of the others. So that's why we see India now on the, inshallah, the third place in the world economy. And they were in this position before with China and India. They were number 1 and 2, and others were very far behind.
Yes.
And now they are gaining what they were in just 1830. So we're not talking about centuries. No, India was economy number 2, China was economy number 1, and I think time will come where old civilization will regain its strength in a cooperative framework, in a new world order where justice will be made to the many in the world, not only to the few in the world.
Yes. Ambassador, His Excellency is to attend Thursday celebrations, and this is a new dawn in the Egyptian-Indian close relations. Tell us more about the aura of those celebrations.
The military parade is the highlight, where the Prime Minister, the President of India, will host President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in the center stage. And then you will see all kinds of divisions from the Indian army, and I hope that you will see also an Egyptian contingent to participate, to show fraternity and friendship, and to celebrate with the Indian Armed Forces and Navy this very important moment. So this is the highlight.
Yes.
And then a lot of celebration, a lot of culture shows, and a lot of social gatherings, as well as political manifestation, and media definitely are celebrating the day. So it is truly a celebration that is to the standard of the very important Republic Day in its 74th anniversary. And I'm sure that the strength and the success of India is a strength and success for Egypt as well as for the third world.
Yes, the first ever exercises between the special forces of both countries, definitely a moment that will herald future cooperation in its highest form.
Indeed, I think when you work together in all dimensions, you will always require to look at peace and security.
Yes.
Those armed forces and naval exercises is made to stabilize a region where international world economy is based on the Gulf area, the Mediterranean and the Red Sea, and the passageway and the straits are among the very important areas where exercises of this nature is to stabilize this very important Niger to the well-being of all nations of the region, to the well-being of international trade, and of course to keep the interests of Egypt and India strong to make peace and security worldwide attained by the people who carry responsibilities, by the people who cooperate, but not the people who are confronting each other.
Yes, India definitely recognizes the important role that is played by Egypt and Egypt's status. Egypt enjoys a great status in the West Asian region. So we're talking about this sense of respect. We're talking about Egypt with its history, the most populous nation in Africa. How do you see, Your Excellency, the prospects of future cooperation between both countries?
When Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Indian government decided to host Egypt in the celebration and President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to be invited as chief guest, India is deeply in full conviction that Egypt is a country that to rely with. It's a country that is a base and gateway to Africa, and Egypt also is a key to the stability of the Middle East and the Gulf, where huge Indian community as well as Egyptian community are living there. And of course, as I said, this is where international trade is crossing through the Suez Canal. And of course, I think the Indian government also and President Narendra Modi has understood that Egypt is very serious in a quest towards modernization, and India will seize no opportunity but to support Egypt in this direction. Take, for example, when you mentioned Hayat Karima Tagrid. This is, for me, it's a social revolution where 58 million people will come benefit. And India has also an agriculture revolution in its history, which we all know since the 60s and 70s. But Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Gujarat, when he was the chief of this very important part of India, has a very successful agriculture scheme and industries that brought Gujarat to where it is now part of the success of the Indian story. So a lot we can learn, not only from Gujarat or the Prime Minister, but from India and its great history.
Yes, definitely lots of lessons learned, and it's great to know the sense of resemblance between both countries, vis-a-vis also the sense of cooperation. The past few months witnessed multiple high-level visits between Egypt and India, from India to Egypt, beginning with the Minister of Defense, Singh, in September 2022, the Minister of External Affairs, that was back in October 2022, and the Minister of Environment. So we do have this sense of shuttle diplomacy and lots of Indian top-notch officials visiting Cairo.
Very significant indeed, because this is the visits that paved the way to such an important height, which we are seeing now in the summit level between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, when Egypt and the President himself are the chief guests. To attain this very important height, you need to build up. And I'm sure that the visit of the External Affairs Minister was very successful, and the visit of the Minister of Defense, and of course in COP you cannot go without India, a very supportive nation to the goals and hopes of the third world in this very important event. And I'm sure that the future is ours, based on political coordination and comprehensive approach to development, where both countries can find solutions in their respective relations, being it in technologies, being it in investments, or in enhancing trade. And as I said, Haya Karima for Egypt is a similar program to what has happened in India before, where rural areas has taken all the attention of the government. Eradication of poverty and bringing in people to join the mainstream is key to Haya Karima and is key to the Indian success stories. I think we have a lot to learn from each other, and we can rely also in our wisdom and in our historical ties, and finding lessons learned to how best not to lose the momentum, because in many times of the relations we reach height, and then for some time we were very busy in developing our capabilities. Now we are both in a strength that shouldn't be left, and relations should be maintained. And when I call Indian companies to come to Egypt, so I'm inviting them to come to stability, to energy, security and resources. When I call Egyptian Indian joint effort in electricity production using Egyptian gas and the technologies learned in the Egyptian reactors in Daba or in the Ain al-Sukhna, or the one with the German partnership, is key to the success of India, safe energy security. And also Egypt can give many ideas and opportunities and lessons to our partners.
Yes, Ambassador, we have lots of success stories between Egypt and India under the leadership of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Lots of, let me say, important corners and leaps in our relations forward. It has been exceptional cooperation, and this is going to be a continuation, as Your Excellency has mentioned, Egypt being invited to the G20. What are we expecting at the G20?
As I said, India is an economy to reckon with. Like it's a place where a lot of vibration is happening, a lot of investment is taking place, a lot of infrastructure that is being built, and a lot of technologies that have successfully been installed. So a lot also to do with international just system. I'm sure that in the G20 India, they will talk about the debt problem. They will talk about the confrontation that is impacting us, sanction that is not only hurting Russia, but it's also hurting all our economies, because Russia is not a small economy. When you impose sanction, we pay the price. Here in Egypt and in Africa and elsewhere. So I think the voice of wisdom, what we will hear, the voice of the third world, the voice of India in the G20 is key, and that's why Egypt will be there together. We will be also among the BRICS countries. You know that Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Algeria is invited to join the BRICS, Russia, India, China, and Brazil, and South Africa. So that I think India voice, as it is also useful to be heard in the COP issue or in the international trade agenda, will be very useful also to be heard in the framework of the G20, where economic pressure is hurting us all. We've been coming from the suffering and the economic strife of the COVID ramification. And now we enter into the Russia-Ukraine war with sanctions and confrontation in Europe. So I think we need to revive the economy based on mutual respect, based on non-confrontational attitude, and a voice of wisdom on how international debt problem or the third world debt problem has to be addressed. I think you will find no better voice to talk on our behalf than India.
Yes, definitely. Well, both President Fattah Sisi and Prime Minister Modi assumed power in 2014 by coincidence. They share the same vision and priority of putting their countries first, trying to achieve this sense of development and modernizing their countries in the rightful place also at the international stage. So we have, that's why we have this bond between both leaders.
I agree. They met 3 times.
Yes.
And I think the sense of commonality is what President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi spoke about today when he said that when I first met Prime Minister Narendra Modi, I was assured that the Indian will attain all its goals, being it economic or politically. And President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, when he says that, he knows that Prime Minister Modi is a very serious and very successful, very determined person. And I'm sure the Indian people, with the knowledge acquired, with the wisdom in their foreign policy, will help us a lot, not only in our region, but also worldwide. I think India has to play an important role in adjusting the injustice that is occurring now in our economies, and also talk on our behalf in the international arena and help addressing the imbalance in world power, being it a rising star, I'm sure not only in BRICS but also in the world ranking of the 3rd largest economy in 2030. They bypassed already the UK, and they are heading to bypass Japan and Germany, and being the 3rd means they will be back to where they belong.
Yes, long live Egypt, and forward ever our deep-rooted relations with India. I thank you very much, Your Excellency, Ambassador Dr. Mohamed Hegazy, former Assistant to the Foreign Minister and former Ambassador of Egypt to India. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for the great information, always adding value. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, David.
And we're still following up here on Nile TV International, and around the clock, the presidential visit, the significant visit by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to India. Many thanks for watching. Tomorrow, another team on the Daily Debate. I'm Taghreed Hussein. Thanks for watching.